Everybody, and welcome back into the Better Buzz. Dave Briggs, Lee Gall here, back with you, talking all things THC beverages, the categories, where the consumers are going. We're going to educate you. That's Lee's role here. And of course, introduce you to some of the brands. But we're really thrilled. And these first couple of episodes to introduce you to two of the, I would say, five people who have done more to move this industry along than anyone else. I mean, I'm talking about Ben Larson just last week, and Jon Halper, the CEO of Top 10 Liquors, this week. I think you are the two most influential people who have moved this business forward, Jon. So it's great to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, great to
Well,
have you, John. I
thank you.
was,
And I'm not deserving of that. I
You
joined
are.
after a lot of people worked really hard to create this industry and are really dedicated to it. And certainly I think that we at Top 10 Liquors, and I'm doing my part, but there's a lot of OGs out there that have done tremendously heavy lifting, and thank you for that. But I don't feel that I deserve that amount of credit.
so
Neither does
I,
Ben. Neither does Ben. Humility is a good virtue here.
yeah, in preparation for today, I was thinking, like, I do think you are worthy of all the praise and so much. And I genuinely think your name has come up in every episode we've had.
Yep.
Just to put that in perspective, that, whether it's just what Top 10 has done to ignite things in Minnesota that have clearly trickled out, or what you're doing within the category and the segments, or just even some of the terminology, like the full flavored. I genuinely think you've come up in every single one of our episodes. So you're deserving of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And again, there's a lot of people that have been in the industry for a lot of years that have built the industry, and I'm just getting on the bus.
Okay, so let's start right off. Lee, why don't you tell the audience about the news that Jon has and get his reaction? Let's start there.
I feel, John, like that you should get the privilege of announcing this, but I will just tee it up with that. This is absolutely massive. I guess preface it with that I'm excited for football season to be here. I'm back in my fantasy football league, and our first game was last night, so only appropriate that you should be able to share the news that that you just broke yesterday.
Yes. And I'll give credit as well to my marketing director who started with us 2 weeks ago, and she's sitting in the room. I'm not going to disrupt the camera and show Allie, but she deserves a ton of credit for putting this together as well. But yesterday we were thrilled to announce a partnership with the Minnesota Vikings. It's very, very exciting for Top 10 to be part of, what a great franchise they are and how meaningful they are in Minnesota. And, one of our real strategies is leaning into the local side of our community. And, nothing says local like a sports team that is based here, that is the focus probably more than any other brand or team in the state. So we're so excited for that partnership. And hopefully someday we can get the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings to contemplate THC, but I think we have a ways to go.
Well, Jon,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to ask you about. Clearly, they know that you not only sell these drinks, but you're very vocal about it. So clearly, it's something the Minnesota Vikings considered. Were there any discussions about the category? And how far do you think we are away from THC drinks at, say, NFL games?
Different elements. Yes, they're aware of our presence of the beverages. I don't think the franchise anti-THC in any sense, but at the same time, the NFL strictly prohibits it, and so they can't, at all engage in the category. I know that last week in your episode talking to Ben, you talked some about Kentucky and a university all of a sudden allowing THC beverages at college football or whatever basketball games.
Louisville, yeah, specifically.
Yep, and how exciting that is, and it's a step, and certainly we've seen festivals and places like that beginning to embrace the category. I would be surprised if you saw the NFL or frankly the NBA embrace the THC beverage side of the category until we've got stronger long-term federal legality for the category. And I think we all feel comfortable that we're doing is federally approved and legal, but we also know there's a lot of regulatory coming, and it could go up or down, and I don't think they'll want to get in until that is better established.
I can tell you, I was on the doorstep of a deal at another brand that won't be mentioned here that was going to bring it into the NBA and the NHL. And this was more than a year ago. And we were very close to coming to a deal. So I think the NFL will lag, but they used to be anti-gambling too, and now it's their biggest source of revenue that they've
True.
eagerly embraced. Yeah,
Very,
I
very
think
true.
I think it's coming pretty soon. Lee?
Yeah, no, I agree that there's got to be a little bit more shape and structure around the category and regulating and all of that. But it just seems like such a no-brainer for being able to offer fans and concert goers this opportunity when we know so many of them are not drinking alcohol or refraining from alcohol. And I think there's going to be a point where these concessionaires and these venues are going to start putting the pressure on to demand it, because they're going to need to make up for lost revenue in other areas.
I think that's true. I mean, certainly as Molson Coors, Anheuser-Busch, a lot of the big brands that support Major League Sports venture into the category, that will help as well. And, I think we all know that Big Alc money kind of goes both ways on the topic. And I think we need Big Alc money fully behind Major League Sports joining this as well, because they're the major sponsors. And so that will probably be a key element as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
and
great
big
point.
alcohol, of course, is struggling right now. So I that's the reason I think they're going to dive in the next couple of years. I can't imagine Diageo and Constellation and these guys are far out. That's why we're so excited to have you on, John, because you get a sense of both markets. So that 54% of American people drink number from Gallup shocked the world. I mean, it's an all-time low. It's down from 68% just a couple of years ago. Are you seeing that at top 10? Are you seeing dramatically less sales from alcohol?
No, we're not. And
Huh.
I tend to think it's overstated. Our business year to date is flat, and certainly we would be down but for the THC category. But, generally when we look at our spirits business, mostly because of the RTD side of it, and when we look at beer, particularly because of domestic and Mexican beer, those businesses are not bad. They're healthy businesses. Wine is probably down about 5%. And I think the wine category is struggling more. If you took out the RTD category, certainly alcohol or spirits are struggling more than the numbers might indicate. But, overall, I think some of the panic and feelings that people express are definitely overstated. And I think there's also a real lack of understanding as to the why, because you hear a lot about people are drinking less and young people don't want alcohol and the healthy side of it, and there's truth to that. I actually think that the major reason these items are down is more the GLP-1 drugs, the diet shots that people get. And I've heard 10% or more of the population is on these drugs. Somebody yesterday was saying that number's understated, it's
It's
significantly
higher.
more.
It's everywhere, man. Everybody's skinny right now.
And I'm not gonna lie, I take them, and I mean I've lost 40 pounds. I work
Oh,
out every
wow.
Holy
day, and
shit.
yeah, I mean I work out every day, so I don't just rely on the drugs to control my weight. And there's a lot of benefits that go along with them. I mean, they're so far proving to be somewhat of a wonder drug. But
Do
I will
you
tell you,
does it curb your desire to drink? Because that's what I keep
it
hearing.
does. It does. I'll tell you the effect that it has for me. And Lee, you may know this better from having talked to me in the past. If I have a couple glasses of wine tonight, I'm not going to sleep well. I'm 57 years old, and at this point in my life, it's sleep disruptive to
Mhm.
me. And so I would tell you that the GLP-1 drugs allow me not to have two glasses of wine so I sleep better. It
Mm.
doesn't mean I don't drink at all, but it reduces the desire, and therefore I'm able to control it better. It used to be that I'd go to a dinner, and before the server even took our dinner order, I had a glass of wine and the next
Yep.
one was on the way, or a cocktail or whatever. And now I'll have a glass of wine with dinner. And, by the end of dinner, I'm like, okay, am I going to finish the glass or not? I could go either way. And so
Yeah.
it gives
Wow.
a lot more control over it. And so, that's for me. And I have other people that have a lack of desire in drinking. And then I have some friends that, eat and drink their way through those drugs. And I don't know why they even bother to take them.
I appreciate, John, the perspective that you were able to give in terms of some of the hearsay of the alcohol decline and you putting a new perspective from your own inside store sales. But then the GLP-1 conversation is so intriguing because I definitely think that that's a huge contender. And Dave, we had discussed a couple weeks ago why the Republicans are drinking less alcohol than the Democrats. And it wasn't until after our filming, I was like,
Dramatically, Jon, dramatically.
I realized, I was like, wait, I didn't know in that moment when you asked me, but later, and I don't know this for a fact, but I was like, that's got to be it. That I feel like there's probably more Republicans on the GLP ones, but I've heard that they take away the food noise. And these THC beverages kind of provide an alternative that still give an effect but don't impact sleep, which of course I also
Right.
relate to.
And it's interesting to me, and I've had other people ask about this. They don't reduce my desire to have THC. So it's not like, good and bad, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't think THC is typically viewed as being addictive. And I'm sure scientifically people could get far more into that side than I can. Like I have them and enjoy them, and it doesn't limit my desire for them. It doesn't limit my capacity to consume them. So it's definitely a different experience.
Yeah. So
That's really interesting. Jon, I love when you post on LinkedIn what people are buying because it gives me such a good sense of the market. Honestly, better than any data I see. Last week, you posted exactly, and it's a blend of THC and drink. So tell us what is going in baskets the most right now. And I want both categories.
It's a really good question. And I would say that, and I'm asked a lot about what are people buying with the THC beverages? Are they just buying the beverages or they're buying other stuff? And, we've seen a lot of support that they're items that are going in the basket with people's normal purchases. So somebody's getting a bottle of wine, they may get a handle of Tito's and a 4-pack of can or whatever THC beverages they want. And so you're really getting a lot of mixed carts from people. And I think that's the best of all. I've said this in the past, but I don't really call ourselves a liquor store anymore. We're an adult beverage store.
Mhm.
And so when you see these mixed baskets, it sort of confirms that whole way of thinking.
Well, the things that jumped out to me, Tito's did not surprise me, plenty of beer, but then you said Surfside Buzz Balls, Carbless, which I don't even know what that is, and then shots. First off, what about these buzz balls? Do those worry you at all? And are shots the most popular THC drink brand or
Uh,
category you're
So,
seeing?
we have a location in the Twin Cities adjacent to the University of Minnesota, and all the college kids came back, and that post related to that one unique store. So that is different than our overall business.
Okay.
It's a great indicator of the 21 plus but under 30 drinker and where they're trending and what interests them. But it's very different than the rest of our stores because if you look at, I mean, all of our stores, no plug, but Uncle Arnie shots rocket every single week, including at our Dinkytown location. Across all of our stores, they're hugely, hugely successful.
Are they
I
fives? Are they tens? What are they?
They're
Oh, yeah.
tens,
Oh,
sorry.
product placement coming, baby. I love the
Yep.
guys at
Here you go,
Arnie's.
Uncle
Just a
Arnie's.
great crew. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's how many milligrams?
10 milligram.
And so do you think people are just firing this down like they would a shot of alcohol?
Yes, I do. I think that they're the easiest. I
Oh,
mean, they're the easiest to bring anywhere because they're compact. We sell them three for $10. So you're getting 30 milligrams of THC for $10.
oh my
And
God.
so I think that, because of that, it's just affordable way, honestly, to get high. And that's
Yeah.
why I think people buy them. And, I'm not saying sneak them into a football stadium. I'm not saying if you're going to go to
Have.
Coors Field today, how easy it is to sneak them in. But everyone's experiences with edibles and gummies are a little bit different. But, the shots have frequently the quicker high, as we know, than maybe the edibles do. And so I think a lot of people would prefer to have the shot over the edibles. And so that's, I think, why they're so productive in our assortment.
That's awesome. I was going to ask that actual question in terms of, because you do carry gummies and edibles, which is really
Mhm.
unique, and you've been
Well,
doing
did
it
you see
for,
my post? Did you see my post? I had
I,
another one. Like all of a sudden I looked and it's like, I was so shocked to see that we had sold like 12,500 packs of gummies in the last 30 days. I
yeah,
was like, it
and
was
you've
In
been
the
doing it
crazy.
last,
for
say it
so
again.
long. And
You've sold how many?
In the last month, we've sold over 12,000 packs of gummies.
so I would love to know what that dynamic, because you've been doing it for so long. What does that dynamic look like in terms of your volume and share for beverages versus gummies?
I actually don't have that exact math. It's a very good question. We can do a follow-up and then
Okay.
I'll let you guys know. I would have said to you if we did this a year ago that the business was driven by beverages, that 80% of our sales at least were beverages and the rest was all these other unique form factors. And I bet today, if I looked, 60% is probably beverages and 40% are shots, edibles, powder, liquid THC, snaps like you've seen the 1906, and others have the snaps where,
Yep.
these are the best things in the
Uh,
world to me. That's 5 milligrams of THC. You can see how thin it is, and all you do is bend it, and you can make whatever THC beverage you want. So, these
ooh, I
unique
had
form
not seen
factors,
those.
They're
they're
amazing.
really they're great. They're great because they're easy, they're flavorless, so they don't change at all the beverage that you're having, and you can bring them anywhere. I
I
mean,
still can't get
literally.
over, sorry, I just still can't get over what that gummy number must mean to the cannabis industry. They must be shitting their pants
I
because if a liquor store is taking that much share, that has
don't tell them.
major
Don't
implications. All
tell them.
right.
Don't tell them. We're
Okay.
just about to have
So,
dispensaries
40,
open here.
60,
oh my
40. That's a
God,
significant split.
that's
I
wild.
I think that the growth of these other categories is amazing. I mean, again, I don't want to rehash all my posts, but I've noted these, but I had a week about a month ago where edibles were our best-selling THC beverage or item for the week, which I had
Wow.
never seen before. And it's just now we sell them three for $12 and you're getting 50 milligrams per. So that was 150 milligrams of THC for $12. And so
Yeah,
certainly that's part of what's driving it. And those do very well, by the way, at the University of Minnesota campus store.
no
But
joke. I'm
at
not
an
surprised
adult
at that
beverage
because
store, like that's so
Yes.
cool to see this
Yes.
transformation happening.
I'm not surprised because everyone in my world, it's the only form of cannabis they really consistently in my age bracket. So I do want to talk about. We use this word dosage, and some people hate it. Some people want us to use something that doesn't sound like medicine. A, should we use something else? And B, where is the biggest volume? Because Lee and I are the 2 or 3 milligram drinkers, but I know you have some other perspective about where most of the sales volume is. So kind of a two-parter there on dosage.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think dosage is fine. I mean, we've got to have things that we make very easy to understand by our customers. And, most people for their lives have been drinking and they know, if I have a normal glass of wine, I can have a glass and feel okay driving. If I have two, it sort of depends on how long I'm sitting there, what I've had to eat. It's a good, they understand the category. When you look at THC, most people have no idea what the effect on them is going to be. And so we try and translate it. And so the 5 milligram dose versus the 10 milligram dose versus the 50 milligram dose allows a better way to introduce people to the categories. You can make a point of saying 5 milligrams is, sort of like having a glass of wine or a
Mhm.
cocktail. 10 milligrams is more the effect of two glasses of wine or two cocktails. So I do think the dosage helps communicate that, but it is medical-ish. I mean, to me, it's how do we simply explain this to our customers? Because the follow-on part of your question, I think, is the much more material part of it. And that is, you know, for us, this is not something I desire. I think I've been accused of that. Um, but more the reality of our business. 48 out of our top 50 4 packs are 10 milligrams. And that means that 2% are less than 10 milligrams because 10 milligrams is the peak dosage you can have in a beverage in Minnesota. And so our customers, overwhelmingly, is even an understatement. Our customers massively want 10 milligrams over lower dose. And I think it's more of a bang for the buck type of
Mhm.
thing because
Yeah.
if you go buy, a 4 pack of 10 milligram beverages for $15, you're getting 40 milligrams of THC for $15. If you buy a 5 milligram 4 pack or 20 milligrams, you're paying 12.99 or something like that. And so people are able to understand the cost side of it. And it's not the industry's fault because the cost of the THC in the beverage is so minimal
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
that it's not like you can, significantly reduce what your 5 milligram beverages are going to be. In the spirits world, it's very different. It's different in multiple respects, but you look at, um, a 750 of Tito's compared to a 1.75 or a handle of Tito's, you're getting more alcohol in
Mm-hmm.
the larger, and you per ounce it's more affordable. And so people equate in a liquor store, an adult beverage store, they're doing the math. And so
Yeah.
that's been, part of the hurdle for us to overcome. The flip side of it is that, a significant portion of our customers are not yet engaging in the THC category. 80% is the number that I've said, and that hasn't really changed. And so my feeling is, we're failing as an industry because we're selling to the people that want to get high.
Mm-hmm.
We're not introducing the meaningful benefits of the category to people that are afraid of it, the stigma of it, don't know about it, we're not getting them there. And so, Allie's sitting in the background, and like we have a list of strategies and things we're planning as a retailer to overcome that, because yes, this is approaching 14% or 15% of our overall business, but I can't get it to 30% until I break down that 80% of customers not shopping the category.
Yeah.
That's
I
who
mean,
we
we've
are.
we've
That's who Lee and
literally
I
had
are.
this conversation, John, where I mean, we've sat
Yes,
in your office and talked about how do we go get those other 80% of your customers. And that is kind of what this podcast and this YouTube channel is about, is trying to get the message out to everybody else and normalize it and show, individuals across the United States like, hey, over here, this isn't scary, or doesn't have to be this bad thing,
right.
and let's normalize it.
I think we know this, and I'm listening to a podcast about business leaders, and they emphasize this point too. It's all about storytelling. I haven't done a good enough job publicly sharing this. We're not doing enough job to our consumers sharing the story side of it. But my story is similar to a lot of people. You know, yes, I've gotten high in my life, and I would go to Vegas or I would go to Colorado and I would go to the dispensary, buy something, go get high, and then have fear, or I'd have anxiety, or I wouldn't sleep. And I'm like, God, I want to succeed, but I can't succeed here. And so, we brought all this product in, and I would taste it and spit it out. I wouldn't even actually consume it. And something early this year, I'm like, I really should try gummies. I don't sleep well. Sleep is like my Achilles heel. I really should try gummies. And I track my sleep. I can show you on my phone. I track it every night. I've been using my Apple Watch, and I just got this device to track it better because I'm very, very curious about it. And if I show you my sleep before I started taking gummies and I show you my sleep now, I used to sleep choppy 5, 6 hours a night. Now I'm sleeping 6.5 to 7 hours. I'm getting 2 hours of REM, and I take a 10 milligram gummy every night before I go to sleep. And so, that is how I've overcome it. And it's changed what is probably one of the most important bodily things that we could do, is getting a good night's sleep. It's changed it for me. And when I talk to people one on one and I tell them that story, they're like, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
I had a gummy and I hated it, or whatever. Or, in the 80s, I was taught through the war on drugs that if I do this, I'm going to be doing heroin next. And I don't,
Yeah.
whatever those ridiculous things are, and they're afraid of it. And they start hearing these stories about, wow, it really made that difference. And I open up my phone and I show them the sleep I
Mhm.
got the night before. And when you see that, it's like, I should try that. I
So
really,
I
really should try that.
I have to ask, and you don't have to, but I
Uh-huh.
feel like people that are watching are going to be like, "Holy crap, I want that sleep." Do you feel comfortable sharing what brand gummy you take?
I do a lot of, I have my preferred brand because I've gotten very comfortable with it.
Uh-huh.
I try a lot of edibles because I think it's important as we look to carry product that, I'm trying them and I have that experience with them. And there's brands that I love that aren't what I take every night. So I don't at all want to suggest, we do carry the one I take, and we're just launching it in our stores. It's the 1906 uh sleep pain gummies. I don't know if you know that group.
Oh
I do.
yeah. Yeah, they're great.
they're so functionally driven in what they do. The quality of what they do, the science behind it has been amazing, and I love their gummies, and they've been amazing at supporting me with that.
I, yeah,
We'll put a
I'd love to
link
see
in the
them.
description so that people can find it.
I'd love to see them get into
Excellent.
beverages because I think they target different emotions very well. I use high spirits, formerly Trojan cannabis gummies that help me sleep great every night. You broached this topic, but I think one of the first posts that like kind of shocked all of us in the LinkedIn space was the percentage of sales dedicated to THC beverage versus the percentage of the shelf space in your store and how long you've been selling THC beverages. If you can break that down for us, because I think that's the number that made us all realize, all right, times have changed.
Yeah. So, Minnesota allowed beginning in 2022 low dose hemp beverages. Liquor stores were not allowed to carry them for the first year because we're only allowed what the legislative body says we're allowed to. And it took them an extra year when they made dispensaries legal to put them in liquor stores. And we launched around June 1 of 2023. So we're a little over 2 years. So we've had, a relatively short time in the business. Within that period of time, it quickly took hold in our stores, and now it's approaching 15% of our overall business. Oh, and I've talked about this where our trends were up 35% year over year. So we're still seeing solid growth in the category, which has been amazing. When I first started giving these statistics out, it was maybe 8 feet in our store, yet we were having huge, huge sales productivity. We've now increased it in all of our locations. In fact, our Andover store we called it the craft beer corner because it was like a I don't know 1,500-foot space. It was dedicated to craft beer. That business unfortunately doesn't matter much anymore, and so now we have an entire 1,500-foot space that's
Wow.
dedicated to THC beverages, including I think 12 cooler doors. So it's like a real serious foot forward as far as that. So I don't know that I would represent that it's such a small percentage of our space. It certainly is not as big as wine or spirits or beer, but it continues to grow aggressively. This winter we committed that by next year we'd like it to be, you know, probably 15% of our store footprint, and we're working towards that now.
That's
Can you paint
awesome.
a quick picture of who is drinking THC drinks, like who the customer is?
Yeah, I mean it's a cross section of everybody. It literally if you see in our stores when we do a tasting event or who's going up to the counter, it can be, a 57-year-old guy like me, it can be a 72-year-old woman that gets it to sleep or because she likes the beverages, or a 35-year-old soccer mom that doesn't want to have a glass of Chardonnay anymore and just wants to sip a THC beverage. The interesting thing is the smallest part of the business is under 30. So the 21 to 30 crowd is the smallest portion of the people that are purchasing in the category. And I presume
Really?
they're more cannabis, smoke a bong or whatever focus rather than, spend $4 or $5 on a can that gives you 5 or 10 milligrams and then they want more and they want more and they want more.
I love that statistic because I think that's such a big question that people have is who is drinking it, and you are literally in a position where you can share that.
Yep.
When you talk about the space growing, just this week, Whitney Economics put out a report that we've officially hit $1 billion in THC beverages. And at the time that they were collecting the information, they said there was roughly 500 to 750 brands in the space nationally. What are you seeing in terms of your store, where you guys are, how many brands you have, and where do you think that's going to go?
So the first thing is I think that the $1 billion number is significantly understated. There's no way it's only like when I look at how much business we're doing, there's no way nationally that it's only a billion. I mean, Texas alone, which it looks like good news in Texas, I
Yeah, we're
think.
good. We're good for now. We're good for now.
Yes.
That's where I'm
Yes.
at. So Texas, we're
Yes.
safe.
But I can't imagine Texas alone is less than $1 billion.
Right.
I've seen estimates that Texas could be 3 or 4 billion just by itself.
Yeah.
So I think those are really, really understated estimates. But I forgot the question.
Oh, I was saying they said there's between 500 and 750 brands. At the
Yeah.
time they were collecting data, do you think that number is underestimated, and where do you think it's going in terms of your store?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you just look at my office and the amount of brands I have sitting here waiting for me to taste them, you'd think it's well over that number, just that alone. But I think that there's, I mean, it's very easy for somebody to come out with a THC brand. It takes very little effort. And fortunately, unfortunately, there's mass proliferation about people that are just churning out beverages. And I think quality beverages are very different than the number of beverages there are. I'd be shocked if there's less than 1,000 different brands out there making beverages today. But if you look at most other industries, it's much larger than that. And that's, I always sort of go to the footprint within our stores. And, if our average store is 8,000 feet and we've got 2,000, 2,500 feet dedicated to wine, we're probably carrying, I don't know, 2,500 different wines or 3,000 different wines. I think Total Wine on their site says, I don't know, they probably say they have a billion different wines. Like, so when you look at all these beverages and everything happening in the THC category, even though 1,000 feels like a lot, as we continue to grow the category and it sort of takes its right space at retail, it's going to have to be more than that. It's more about defining dosage, functionality, types of beverages like you have Cabernet, sparkling, champagne, whatever, and we have to create those sections. And we've made an effort as a
Mhm.
retailer to do that. Not controversial, but not everybody completely agrees with it. Do you do dosage first and then type of beverage? Do you do brands together? Do you do the type of beverage and then dose within it? Like, figuring that out is something that we all sort of separately do, but as an industry, we need to figure out. But there's still a lot of room for growth, and particularly on the function side of it.
Yes.
I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, it's great to see functionality growing in importance. But I will tell you that the 80% of our customers that are not in the category, outside of wanting something to make them sleep better or to relax after work, are probably not initially focused on that functionality. It's going to take time and reliability with that functionality for it to
Mhm.
develop, because there's a lot of people that claim functionality that doesn't exist with their product.
Yeah, that
That's
consistency piece. I was gonna ask, of all the brands and all the noise, who wins? Like how do you win?
how do you win at retail? Like, what's the
Yeah,
formula to succeed at retail?
what brand like how do they win in all of this?
I think the first thing a brand has to do is they need to understand that my agreeing to take in their brand is not the win.
Hmm.
The win is when we're repeatedly reordering the brand. And I think a lot of brands, maybe mistaken's not the fairest word, but they're kind of mistaken. They win by getting it into our assortment and then it doesn't sell. Some of them then look at me like, well, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, I have like 8,000 items in my store. What do you mean? What am I going to do? Like, I'll help you any way I can. What's your strategy as a brand to succeed? And, certainly we know, I think there's nothing more important than tasting and
Mhm.
having product that people are sampling is part of that, because then they're like, oh, this tastes really good. I could drink this. They're not really getting, in Minnesota, we're not allowed to have dose samples any longer. But even if you do, you take those little 1 ounce shots and you're not really experiencing if you're getting high from it or not. But when they taste it, they taste really good. A lot of these beverages, they're way more interested in buying them. And so I think that the sampling is huge. I think that leveraging with whatever retail partner you're working with, what are their promotion opportunities? Do they do email blasts? Do they, through social media, are they marketing the category? How is the retailer driving the business, and how do these brands partner with it to be able to succeed? And having a very well defined strategy. I have no insider information. This is not maybe it's a prediction, but I could see federally at some point direct to consumer perhaps not being legal anymore. And I think it should be legal. I'm not anti it. I support direct to consumer, but I also know there's a lot of sacrifices that will be made to structure a deal that federally is acceptable. And that may be one of the elements that goes away. And I think that there's a number of brands that are heavily reliant on that. And I
Mhm.
think they need to be better focused on what is their retail strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really going to matter in the long run, not how much you can market and sell direct to consumer, but what do you do at retail? Because that's where brands succeed.
Mhm.
Okay, final question because we've taken too much of your time. If you were a company that wanted to jump into this field, where would you say is the real opportunity in the space?
On the beverage side of it, if you look at sort of the broad areas that we have, we have the colas, we have the flavor forward, we have the teas and lemonades, we've got the seltzers. I mean, number one, stop calling things seltzers. We saw a brand yesterday that called themselves Sparkling Water, which I think is a great name because that is what a seltzer is. But like you see a sparkling water, you think, oh, it's like bubbly. It's not going to have calories. Seltzers mean so many different things. It just means a drink that has bubbles in it. And I think that that is hurting a lot of brands to call themselves seltzers because it's sort of developing a bit of a bad name. But today, quality beverage that's flavor forward, I think is the way to go. We're not seeing the level of success that we'd like to with the can of cocktails. It's disappointing
Mhm.
to me. I'd like to see more success there, but I don't see a lot of traction in that area. A lot of traction in colas, teas, lemonades, things like that. I think the next wave is going to be the functional side of it. I think how the beverages differentiate themselves from an effect perspective is going to matter a lot more as people
Mhm.
dig further into the category. We're not there yet, but that will be, I think, what
It's
we
where we're
expect to
going.
see going forward. I think so.
Yeah,
I
I
think so.
agree.
Yeah, I think the only other element that I add is someone that figures out the word you used a little bit ago, storytelling. I don't think anyone in the category is actually storytelling. There's content, there's some decent content, decent marketing, but no one to this point is actually storytelling the way a Red Bull or some of the biggest beverages in the world, you know, Celsius, some of these brands. But we
Or
shall see.
I think of
John, we have
Sam Adams, Jim Cook did a great job developing that craft beer because of the
well,
storytelling. I think you
Jim.
nailed it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Jim has Jim has Teapot. He just needs to bring it to the U.S.
Tell the story, Jim.
John, this has been a really awesome conversation. We really enjoyed it here on A Better Buzz. Please tell your friends, like, subscribe to the channel. And John, go Vikings, man. I don't know how you feel about your team, but JJ McCarthy, I don't know. Rookie, basically quarterback. I'm not sure what to make of your team.
I think that we've taken some quarterbacks that may have been average and made them look better than average. So I
Darnold.
think there's a lot of pressure on our new quarterback, but he's also got a structure and quarterback whisperer coach. So hopefully we'll cross our fingers he doesn't get shook up by 300-pound men running at him trying to kill him.
Yeah, you might have the best young coach in football, and now you are the official liquor store of the Vikings. So
Yes.
congrats on that, John Halper.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here, brother.
Yeah,
Great participating. Thank you for including me.
absolutely.